Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Blaze Gaming. My name is Dakota. I had a just kind of a weird thing hit me just now, and I kind of wanted to make a video on it because it's something that has been on my mind for a long time, but only just now has it been really confirmed that I guess that it's something that I should probably talk about. Ark Survival Evolved. Is a game that I've known about for a very long time. Obviously, it's been out for a pretty long time, and the trailer's back in 2015. I remember watching Markiplier play it on his channel. I don't remember if it was early access at the time or not. I think it was. He's trying to get on the hype train early, but it's one of those games. It's like it's crafting survival, so it's a really slow-paced kind of game, and it's very grindy. I think he was playing it in single player. It's very, very grindy, so you have to adjust a ton of settings to make it even playable in single player, I feel. But from the very first moment that I heard about the game, I was like, okay, well, Ark, so obviously they're referencing the Bible. There is probably something to do with an apocalyptic event that nearly ended humanity, and you are probably on some sort of ship. In some metaphorical sense or some literal sense, you are probably on a ship of some kind that is designed to preserve humanity and Earth's creatures. Plus, Survival Evolved, the subtitle of the game. I mean, that's a pretty big indicator of kind of what you have in store. Obviously, the big selling point in the game, other than it being Minecraft, is dinosaurs. People love dinosaurs, and everyone was excited about dinosaurs. People were pissed off when No Man's Sky didn't have the dinosaurs that you saw in the trailer, which it did. They were just extremely rare. I never saw any in the early versions of the game. Obviously, now they are much more accessible, but yeah, that was the big selling point was dinosaurs in Minecraft. But from the first moments of the game, I mean, even just looking at the trailer or looking at the logo, even and starting the game up for the first time, you have this implant in your arm. I mean, there's definitely hints as to what's going on. There's the obelisks on the island. To me, it was pretty obvious this is going to be a sci-fi adventure on some level. There's going to be references to sci-fi or there's going to be discussions about it's probably in the future that this takes place. And I like sci-fi stuff. I have a lot of sci-fi games that I play. And, you know, I might be biased, but I felt like that was a perfectly okay direction for this game to go. From a few different perspectives, it just seemed fitting. Like that was obviously their goal from the start, and I was very okay with it. And then they've gotten only more sci-fi with time, which again, I'm not against. I've really enjoyed those aspects, and I just got Genesis recently and been trying it out, and it's great. It's broken. It's very broken. I mean, this game's always been broken. It's always lacked a certain level of polish, but it's fun. There's lots of fun things to do. There's really cool creatures they've added that are not historically accurate or even inspired by real creatures necessarily. But there's a lot of cool stuff they've added. When I heard Scorched Earth came out, like the first DLC, and they announced, there was going to be dragons and griffins and phoenixes and shit, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. They're adding some mythological creatures that I really like and all that. And then mixing that with like the sci-fi tech and stuff that's in the game, it's an interesting concept. And then I'd heard along the way somewhere, I don't know where I first encountered this, but I'd heard along the way that there were people who really hated the sci-fi elements. It's like, when did this become a sci-fi game? And I was like, become? What do you mean become? It's always been a sci-fi game. From the first trailer, it was very clearly intended as a sci-fi game. From the name Ark Survival Evolved, you'd think probably sci-fi. Again, the logo looks sci-fi. Like, I don't understand where this idea comes from that it's just supposed to be primitive. And then they released the Primitive Plus DLC for free, which is a total conversion that makes the game all primitive, no tech at all, no tech dinos, none of that stuff. Which is fine. I think the fact that they release a free DLC that isn't just a mod to remove the tech, but also adds more stuff so that you can, still do things in the game and still have a progression system that goes beyond, the most basic stuff and expands on the primitive stuff to make it more widely make it like a more wide variety of like what's available to you. I think that's brilliant, and good on the devs for adding that in. But then what really made it kind of sink in that there was obviously a lot of backlash against the sci-fi stuff was when I saw the announcement for Genesis Part 2, where they also discussed Arc 2, that is supposed to be coming next year, starring Vin Diesel, who's apparently a big fan of the first game. And I want to read this verbatim so you kind of get what struck me. They say, "So what's next? Not tech, that's for sure," with like a sly smile emoji. "As we look forward to a primarily primitive themed Arc 2, we'll continue to provide meaningful updates, blah, blah, blah." And I thought, primarily primitive themed? But it's not set in a primitive universe or a primitive Earth. I mean, obviously they can do what they want, but I felt that what made Ark really stand out was the sci-fi elements and the story that they were going for. I've never made it to tech tier on any of my playthroughs. I've only played single player. I feel like the community of Ark is not one that I really want to get into PvP with. Obviously, there's PvE servers, but every time I've gone into a PvE server, I have ended up not being able to find a place to live because everything's taken and they just place pillars as far out as they can from their bases so that people are prevented from building. So I haven't really bothered with online. And single player, like I said, is very, very heavily stacked against you. So I've found guides on making it a lot more single player friendly, which has made it a much more enjoyable game for me. I did play it for a long time before I made those adjustments, but anyways, I've never made it to the tech tier. I only just recently finally managed to make it to metal tier. I finally played it long enough and got like the kind of dinos I needed, because I didn't even realize early on how important dinos were and how unimportant the gear is. That like your gear is so unimportant. Early on it's important, obviously, but as soon as you can start taming dinos, you should start taming dinos, because that's going to change everything for you. You're going to be able to harvest more materials and progress faster, all that stuff. But the taming takes forever, which is why I didn't do it very much. I only did it when I knew I absolutely had the time to. I actually could, but eventually it got really grindy, and I got really turned off. So I altered the settings, and now I can actually tame things in a reasonable amount of time. But even without having reached tech tier, even without having reached metal tier until recently, I still really liked the sci-fi elements of the game. And starting up Genesis Part 1 for the first time and meeting Helena, HLNA, I thought that was really good. I think she's really well voice acted. That's one of the better performances I've heard in a game in recent memory. Just really well voice acted. A really fun set of dialogue lines. Generally, I think it's a pretty fun character, and I actually like the system that they have in place for that, where you can do these missions and get hexagons and stuff. I think that the missions can be pretty brutal in single player. Obviously, the races are really easy because then you don't have to compete against anybody. That's kind of nice. But it's also like, yeah, it's hard to do some of the like combat missions solo. So when I saw that they were going away from the primitive stuff in the sequel, I was like, man, are they really taking the backlash that hard that they're going to alter their artistic vision in the sequel to make it fit what seems to be, and from looking through the community forums and stuff, it seems to be a minority of players that actually dislike the sci-fi stuff to the point that they won't play the game if it has sci-fi in it. I don't know. It just seems like a very small amount of people, because every forum post that's about the sci-fi elements being a problem is just filled with responses to people saying it's always been sci-fi. What are you talking about? Why are you bitching? It's very clearly a sci-fi game. And I mean, the sci-fi stuff allows them to really expand on an artistic vision and make it a unique game rather than just a Jurassic Park mod for Minecraft, because that's what it would have been otherwise. And I don't know why anybody would really want that. I mean, maybe because Minecraft has got blocky graphics or whatever. But I mean, it's this incessant need in the gaming community right now, in the industry, of gamers expecting companies to put a crafting system in everything, and then a building system in everything. I want to build a house, and I want to craft my tools, and I want them to break every 5 seconds. Like, I like crafting as much as the next guy, I guess, but like, there's just been added to so many things that it seems superfluous at this point. There's a lot of things that don't really need it. Like Alien Isolation is a great example. It's a survival horror, and so I get that there's like limited resources and stuff, but I've never seen anybody's playthrough of that game. Obviously, I can't play through it because I'm a scaredy little whiny baby, whamma boo boo baby. But in no one's playthrough that I've ever seen or even heard about has anyone ever run out of resources, because the only thing you need in that game really is a noisemaker. Just hurl it into the corner of the room and run the other direction. Very, very easy to handle that. And then, of course, the flamethrower, which you need to kill the facehuggers later on. But spoilers, I guess. But this whole idea of Ark would seriously just have been a Jurassic Park mod for Minecraft with better graphics. Unpolished graphics, I feel, but better graphics nonetheless. So the fact that they decided to throw in mythological creatures and sci-fi elements and their own story, it's not focused on the dinos so much as it is focused on, this original story of, well, I mean, obviously inspired by plenty of other stories of a post-apocalyptic scenario where people have created some form of an ark to keep humanity going, and it's always called an ark too. Like, I mean, look at Soma, for example, is another one of those sci-fi futuristic things where we create an ark to keep humanity preserved or whatever. But it's still their story, and they have characters that are interesting and well written and generally just add so much to the typical story of the ark, that it does feel like its own vision. The dinos, to me, felt like, how do we take this story that everyone's seen before about an ark and make it marketable? And that's with dinos, basically. That's, you throw dinos in. I mean, it's the Horizon Zero Dawn effect, right? Where we want to have dinos in our game. How do we write a story that incorporates that? Except I think in Ark's case, it was probably more of the reverse, where they had kind of the story, and they're like, well, how do we make it more sellable? Dinos. But it could have been, and I feel like it very well could have been, it very well might have been, reverse engineering. We want to have dinos and crafting and survival. What are we going to make? What are we going to add to this to make it ours and make it justified that we'd have dinos? The Ark. The Arks are literally like they are ships, or they're simulations. They're simulations that preserve, well, and they are ships too, I think. I don't know the full story, but they preserve human life and also life on the planet and try to evolve it to make it more survivable and bring back our civilization from the brink of destruction. So to me, that is really what made Ark what it is. And what Ark is to me, and has always been to me, has been a sci-fi tale that is very Planet of the Apes. It brings humans back to a very primitive state and lets the player kind of build themselves up as they want to be able to, you know, complete the story and find out what's going on the island and just kind of live the way they want to live in this particular setting. But then all these people just want to come along and ruin it and be like, well, your artistic vision sucks. It should be my artistic vision. It should be Jurassic Park with crafting. Like, that's... I mean, I get that we don't really have a Jurassic Park game that's really like this. I mean, we have Turok, which is similar, but there's no crafting, obviously, and Turok is kind of dead as a franchise, I'm pretty sure, because Acclaim went bankrupt and they owned it. I don't know if anyone bought the rights to it after Acclaim went under, or if anyone bought Acclaim even. Didn't really follow up on much of that bankruptcy stuff because they were a big joke. But I just feel like the complaints from the community are kind of ridiculous, and this constant pressure that gamers put on industry professionals, on developers, to sacrifice their artistic vision in favor of what the gamer expected from a particular product. It's entitlement, and it's selfish, and it speaks to what I think the major flaw with a lot of the gaming community is that they don't see video games as an art form and as an expression of the developer's interests and goals as an artist. I mean, the same thing kind of happened in No Man's Sky, and while I still love that game and I love all the things they've added to it, I respected very deeply, and I've talked about this before, I just respected very deeply what they were going for, which was a feeling of isolation throughout this adventure to the center of the universe. Now, I think in their expectation of what people would want from the game and what people and what they wanted people to experience, I think their expectations were a bit flawed in their development cycle, in their planning, because a lot of people don't want that type of, you know, introspective, thought-provoking, isolationist kind of journey through space. A lot of people want, I want multiplayer, and they also thought, well, no one's going to find each other. The universe is too big. And then people found each other on the first day. Obviously, that's going to happen. People are going to figure your stuff out. It's not rocket science. It is brilliant what they did, but it's still like people are going to figure it out, especially the way they did it, because it's not one galaxy full of planets and you start on random parts of it. They had to make a progression. So what they did was they made a bunch of galaxies, and you start on one galaxy that's small compared to, you know, the scope of the game. You start on one galaxy, and you're all starting around the edges and moving inward. So as soon as you realize that that's the case, it's like, well, it's going to be easy to find people. You just keep restarting your game until you start on a similar system or nearby system. It's like, it's no surprise that people found each other the first day, because you're not spawning on any random planet that exists in the game's universe. You're spawning in a very specific section of a specific galaxy in that universe. But then people put all their expectations on the developer, like, where's multiplayer? Where's base building? Where's this? Where's that? It's like, okay, I understand that people wanted more from this, and I feel like the trailer was a bit of a exaggeration, and definitely Sean Murray had was not the guy they should have chosen for PR for this game. But they are an inexperienced developer. I don't know what anyone expected. I'd never heard of this developer before No Man's Sky. And the same thing goes for Wildcard Studio, which I think this is actually their first game, Wildcard Arc, which is like, this is an indie developer who have a vision. And the thing about the vision for Arc is I don't think it was out of touch. No Man's Sky, I felt, was a bit out of touch with what would be possible, or what the community would do with the game. They didn't have any understanding of what expectations would be on them. Whereas I think Arc, like Wildcard, had an understanding of what people would expect from Arc, because they really they didn't really exaggerate what the game was offering. They showed their cards straight up. This is what the game is, and it was true to life. I mean, obviously it was a really broken down mess when it started, and it still has a lot of issues. Just normal stuff that you'd find from an indie developer in their first project. But the thing is that I feel like, while I feel like the criticism leveraged at No Man's Sky is for the most part undeserved or unfair, there is fair criticism of it. Whereas the criticisms of Arc just being like, well, I don't like the sci-fi stuff, then don't play Arc. You're going to be missing out on a big deal, because Arc is a big deal. It's got I think currently it's got like 100,000 concurrent players a day right now. That's a good amount. That's just on Steam, by the way. So that's a good amount, and I think it's pretty sad that people want to put all these expectations on these developers and really just force them out of their creative space and their comfort zone to make something they weren't intending to make to begin with. And I just feel like that's ignorant and disrespectful. Do I think we should give developers complete free reign of doing whatever the hell they want? Well, absolutely not. Criticism exists for a reason, and it's important to keep developers in check as to what they're capable of doing. But then you don't have, you have people bullying these indie developers into completely sacrificing their artistic vision to make whatever trendy garbage is currently popular, and just copying everyone else's ideas. But you don't have that same kind of criticism on companies like Ubisoft or EA, who are creating the same tripe every goddamn year, with sometimes months apart. Ubisoft releases like 4 sandbox games a year that are functionally identical, and they never get the flack they deserve for it. EA doesn't get the flack they deserve. Activision does somewhat, but they don't change, because their games still sell in ridiculous numbers. I don't know. I just feel like I'm kind of ashamed of where the gaming community has kind of come to. I've been a gamer for a very long time, since I was very young, and I don't know. I feel like the gaming community is not a group I really like associating with anymore, because I feel like they're entitled little brats who don't have any respect for the medium, and will just throw a temper tantrum if they don't get exactly what they want out of every game. And like I say, I think there's criticism that's totally fair and deserved, but a lot of times I feel like it's way over the line, and just unrealistic expectations and unfair expectations. That, while are not unrealistic, are definitely not an okay thing to want, I think. At least in the cases of things like No Man's Sky, where people wanted them to completely sacrifice their artistic vision of a solo journey through space, of introspectiveness, self-reflection, that kind of thing, and just throw that out the window in favor of another multiplayer crafting system based base building exploration game. I don't know. It's just silly. But this is what the industry's become, and I don't think it's going to change. I don't think I'm going to have any influence on it. People like Yahtzee are not going to have very much influence on it. I mean, obviously he's had some influence. I still think he's the best game critic that's around. No offense, Jim Sterling. but I do think you're kind of a cunt, which is the point, I think. But but no, I think he's also a good game critic, and I just. But I just don't feel like these are the kind of critics that are getting listened to. People that are getting listened to are like Kotaku and well, I would say GameSpot, but GameSpot's not really being listened to so much as being paid to say certain things, and that goes for you too, IGN. And again, there's a lot of that's another major problem with the games industry is our media, our representation is so bad and out of touch. Well, quite frankly, I think Kotaku and Polygon can jump up their own asses and die. They are awful companies with awful people working for them, and they should just go under. I do not care about how that comes off, because it is very harsh to say that somebody's livelihood should be ruined or taken away, but they don't deserve any of the reach that they have. They've not earned it, and they're the Ann Coulters of fucking games journalism, if you ask me. Anyways, that's about all the rant I have for today. I don't know. In the end, I just think that our community is full of entitled brats that need to lighten the fuck up and learn how to enjoy video games again. Which goes for me too, because I have trouble accepting certain things as they are, and I have trouble remembering to enjoy myself when I play games, because everything is such a grind. Games have become a chore or a job more than they've become a break from the real world. So thanks for tuning in. I plan to probably do more streaming soon, and hopefully more dedicated videos and stuff as well. I can't believe that the Ignoring His Abuse video is nearly at 20K views now. That's nuts to me. I appreciate the support very, very much. And I am going to keep making videos on video games because it's what I enjoy. But I'm also going to do some of that stuff too because it's important to me. So thank you all for bearing with me through all this roller coaster of content. And I will see you in the next video, whenever that is, or stream. Thanks for watching Black Blaze Gaming. I'm Dakota. I don't have like a staple outro. Whatever. Bye.